Hello, hi, howdy. I know this isn't my type of video, not a meme or gameplay, but I wanted to try something new, a book review. I wanted to give my perspective on Metamorphosis, which is a book written by Franz Kafka. The moral of Metamorphosis revolves around change. Change. It can be horrifying and scary, but it is necessary. Change is as inevitable as time is continuous. As I read Metamorphosis, I couldn't help to realize how scary change can be. Now imagine, you come home from a hard day of work and travel, and you rest on your bed and fall into a deep sleep. You wake up to your body becoming an alien vessel and can't recognize your thoughts or movements. That is the introduction of Metamorphosis. The book Metamorphosis takes place in the small apartment where Gregor lives with his family. Gregor is the main character. Though we aren't giving a specific time period, carriages and horses are included in the story, so it is safe to assume that the novella is set in a time before automobiles. Gregor's life changes when he becomes an insect. He's trapped inside the apartment. He also eats things and behaves differently. In Gregor's case, the space in which he can continue his life as a bug, now eating rotten food and scurrying here and there, becomes smaller and smaller as his family becomes more and more freaked out. Gregor's space in the apartment is limited to his bedroom. His inability to leave his room without the wrath of his family traps him even further within himself. The whole story takes place in the apartment. This highlights the isolation theme that Kafka builds. The only reality is within, just as the real Gregor is within his newly shelled body. The isolation and loneliness literally has Gregor climbing the walls, turning more animal-like, and even accepting the fact that he won't turn back human. He starts to lose his humanity, and his sister believes that that is what he would want. She sees him as an animal, so she believes he should be treated as an animal. She convinces their mother to move all of Gregor's belongings out of his room to allow him to move around the room easier. However, Gregor realizes that he isn't fine with just being an insect, and wants to hold on to every object he owns as a human. He doesn't want anything to be removed from his room because he believes that if it is removed, he will no longer have his humanity or any sense of it. Sadly, in the end of the novella, Gregor dies. Upon discovering that Gregor is dead, the family feels a great sense of relief. Now that I have given a quick summary of Metamorphosis without giving too much detail, I will implement the idea of change and how the moral is pushed throughout the story. Now to start off, the title is named Metamorphosis. The word under Google shows two definitions. The process of transformation from an immature form to an adult form in two or more distinct stages. Or a change of the form of nature, of a thing or person into a completely different one by natural or supernatural means. In the book, we see both examples of what metamorphosis is. Gregor represents the first one, where the outcome is a literal adult insect. Gregor's family, which includes his father, mother, and sister, represent the second definition, where they conclude a different person. The first example of change can be viewed within Gregor, as he awakes one morning to his body transformed, and the book goes off to represent this as something terrible, stating, one morning upon awaking from agitated dreams, Gregor Samsa found himself in his bed, transformed into a monstrous vermin. Gregor hesitates to believe that the transformation is real, even believing that it is just a simple dream and that he will soon wake up from it. Little does he know that this transformation will lead to more changes. He can't go to work due to him sleeping on his back and during the transformation growing a shell, which makes it difficult for him to turn over. Upon his family discovering what he has become, the relationship between Gregor and his family changes. They see him as a disgusting insect that shouldn't be acknowledged and be avoided at all costs. They even start believing that the insect is no longer Gregor and now is just an animal with just animal instincts and no humanity at all. Due to Gregor being the sole provider of the family needs to change and get jobs so that they can afford food and the apartment. They stop paying cleaners and clean the house themselves and eventually start renting the apartment to lodgers. Throughout that, Gregor tries to keep his human tendencies but loses the craving for human food and enjoys laying on the wall motionless, just as any bug would like. He starts to accept that he will remain an insect, but still wishes to coexist with his family, because he yearns for the joy he felt from being with them. Despite the memories that Gregor has fond of his family, they neglect him and abuse him, to the point where they stop feeding him. One day as Gregor startles his mother to the point where she faints, his father assumes that Gregor is attacking her. His father throws apples at him so hard that an apple gets embedded into Gregor's back. The apple could be said to symbolize the beginning of exile, which is what it meant for Adam and Eve in paradise. Gregor's dad hurts Gregor because he no longer sees him as his son. Only his mother tried to recognize him as Gregor. But when you are a human-sized centipede cockroach creature, you startle people easily. The apple embedded into Gregor's back rots, and due to Gregor being weak from not eating and being beaten near to death by his own father, he dies. Despite that, the family sees this as an opportunity to leave. The family takes a trolley ride out to the countryside. They leave different people. As before they relied on Gregor, but now, all of a sudden, they were determined and eager to start a new life and get jobs. Even Gregor's sister is described by the parents to be more mature. This is a sad ending, because through the story, we learn to accept Gregor's changes and that despite them, he is still Gregor. Yet the family doesn't try to. They despise the change in Gregor throughout the story. Not until after Gregor's death they acknowledge that they have changed into people capable of maintaining themselves. People for the better. Even for Gregor, it took turning into a bug to realize how much he has been working to support his family, that he has isolated himself and dehumanized himself even before turning into an insect. The change was inevitable. No one could have predicted Gregor would have transformed into an insect overnight. The same could be said for us. No one can predict the future. No one can determine sudden change. You can prepare for it, but you can never truly know what will happen. For Gregor, he acknowledges that he could have prepared by loving his family more and live more in the moment rather than focus too much on his job. Change isn't always transforming into a monster, but nonetheless, it is scary. It causes anxiety in us to think that it will come out of the blue. And if we're too carefree, it will trip us. But just as there is bad change, there is good change. And the good thing about changing is that it happens all the time. Most of the time it is out of our control, but sometimes we can control it. The book Metamorphosis shows an example of when you can't control it. Gregor couldn't control him turning into a monster. He also couldn't control his family accepting him. And due to them not accepting him for what he had become, he died. Accepting change is difficult. It is difficult to accept change in ourselves and others, because the change brings man's worst fear and enemy, the unknown. But we need to learn to accept that change and embrace it, because change will not stop. It is as inevitable as time is continuous. In life, changes are like waves. They keep coming. Sometimes it is hard to keep your stand, and other times we need to recover from them. The best we can do is to float with them.